done. So that has also brought a lot more awareness of the technique.
That's fantastic. I want to ask you, even though I know that you already described this in your book, I'd like you to share your view now on cervical pillows and rolls.
Yeah, so there's this notion in our culture that we're supposed to have a curve in our neck. It's part of this whole S-shaped curve spine philosophy. And I teach J-spine, and the upper part has relatively little curve, including in the cervical spine. So that's an area where I think people should have length, not tons of curve. Now, if they already have a lot of curve, it doesn't feel nice to have that curve kind of suspended midair with no pillow touching it. So I teach people to bunch up their pillows to just comfort the area, but not to use a roll to the point that you're exaggerating your curve there. Then you're going in the wrong direction. See, I want people to be lengthening and making their curves more gentle, not exaggerating them.
So in a roundabout way, because I know you did a lot of explanation on that, the bottom line on the cervical pillows is what?
Only in very, very extreme cases of having very big curves do they make sense. And they don't make sense for most people. So I tell people to just use regular pillows.
Right, because you want both the head and the neck on the pillow, correct?
And the shoulders, like an inch or two of the shoulders on the pillow as well.
See, everybody, this really is
different.
Yeah, it's a complete...
The reason I like the shoulders to be a little bit on the pillow is then that allows the neck to be kind of in line with the rest of the back. And also, if the shoulders or upper back is a little bit on the pillow, that helps this tucking the ribs thing, to help the sway in the back. A little difficult to understand just over the radio, but it's a very important concept, and it is unusual for people to not feel better sleep after learning this technique. I was just looking at I just taught at San Jose, and we had, 17 evaluation forms came back, and I counted this time how many people commented on improved sleep. 14 out of 17.
I wish you were selling pillows.
Simple. I don't have any special pillows there. It's a simple pillow. Simple, $5, $6 pillow from Target. And it's what you do on the pillow that's important.
Pretty powerful. We're going to talk a little bit about the inner corset, because this really flies in the face of everything we're being told about what to do with abdominal exercises. And I know that it's something that needs to be seen and you need to go through the experience of it, but I really would like to invite you to talk about it, because so many of us are rushing to the gym and doing abdominal exercises that we shouldn't be doing. I know you touched a little bit on this regarding crunches, but talk about the inner corset if you would.
Sure. So the inner corset consists of the deeper abdominal muscles and deepest back muscles, which all together form a kind of brace. And then that makes you more slender and more tall. And in that process, you are easing apart the vertebrae, creating more room for the nerves and the discs and so on. And it is your ticket to an active lifestyle without wear and tear. So if you're going to play tennis, for example.
Which I don't do because I'm in too much back pain to do it.
Oh, but we got to turn that around. I have so many people who go back to their sports and so on. You don't want to start there. You want to develop your confidence and first do everyday life well. But I always tell people, don't ever give up on anything, You don't want to be foolhardy, but once you know how to manage your body, it's incredible how well designed it is and how resilient and how many things it can do, For me, by the way, remember I was told not to have any more kids? I've had 2 more kids. Once I learned how to work with my body, 0 back pain, no twinges, no aches, nothing. 22 years.
Wow.
So that's the level of confidence I want to help people reach. And, I don't move furniture. That's a job I wouldn't take up, given my history of, back surgery. But short of that, there's nothing I don't do. I feel extremely confident. I can work with my body, I can play any sport, lift things, no problem. So anyway, coming back to that, the inner corset is a very key part of that ability to sustain wear and tear. Actually, there's a very sad study that was done, published in the British Journal of Medicine, and the finding was that elite teenage tennis players have the same level of arthritic change in their backs that the average 60-year-old has. And that is just so sad. It's grotesque.
Why? Why?
Because they're pounding, because they don't know this inner corset. They're just, maybe they do some crunches, but they're not using the right muscles. They're not using those muscles as they twist and as they have all those impacts. And so instead their bones are just stressing up against each other, and bone-on-bone stress induces calcium to get deposited, and, that's your arthritis right there. And just because everybody has it, by age 50 does not make it normal, does not make it natural.
That's a pretty shocking story that you're telling.
I think it's really sad. And there's so many groups of people who need this information. I think of it as body secrets. You don't want to live your life without it.
I really think it should begin in the schools.
I agree, and I have tried many ways to reach it to schools. It's not easy. This is an area where there's not much time. Kids are overscheduled. Schools are underfunded. It's very difficult, and so I am still trying, but not trivial. And so meanwhile, I teach whoever is open and willing to learn, and that's becoming an increasing number of people. We're getting more and more young people, which is very cool.
Have you had classes of children or teenagers?
We do. We have a teen class, and we have children's classes, and it is extremely rewarding. But I find that it's hard to schedule them because they are busy doing so many things. Hard to get them to show up at a particular time in a consistent way.
I see.
I think it needs to go through the schools, and we're going to be trying that.
I think it would be fantastic. There's so many things that children need to learn that are not being provided in the schools. Even the whole thing about the water that they drink and the food that they eat and where their seeds come from. And it goes on and on. But this is so critical to everything and will impact their entire life.
It's so accessible. There's no reason to not do it. It's just misinformation and a lack of knowledge. That's all that stands in our way. So we should be able to fill that in. That's one of my big missions, is to reach the next generation, because it's getting worse and worse. Their teenagers now have really high back pain rates. And, it's one of the better inheritances people can pass to their kids is to help them have good structure. And so, kids can take our courses, and it's so critical that they have that base.
I love it that you have been highly referred by Helen Barkin, MD, who's in neurology at the Mayo Clinic, who says the greatest contribution ever made to non-surgical back pain treatment. And you also have the bravo from the orthopedic community, which I find very refreshing. To the extent that you have, I'd like to know to what extent after 20 years you feel that you are getting support. I know that there are a lot of doctors that refer business to you and a lot of patients that you've helped not have to go through back surgery. But what has been your take on the orthopedic community?
They're very supportive in that they find the theories down to earth, logical, and promising. Now, the way medicine is set up, it's the internal medicine doctors and family practice doctors that are incentived to refer to us, because they're, it's just set up that way. And so that's who we get the most referrals from. The internal medicine, family practice doctors, they keep getting the same patient coming back with the same back pain because this failed and that failed. And when they send them to us, it actually works. And so that is, they appreciate not having to, just keep failing their patients, that provide them a referral that actually